Okay, so to go ahead and create a drawing of a gear tooth, to set up a gear tooth drawing, what we're going to do is we're going to open up a brand new layout first. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the base view of the gear that we've already modeled. So this is my gear. I'm going to go ahead and actually lay this out at 1:1, and I'm going to go ahead and place this front view just like this. So now that this is placed in position, what we're going to have to do is I'm going to need to create a section view of this gear. But in order to create a section view that is going to then run from one gear tooth directly down through to another gear tooth, we're going to have to rotate this gear on the sheet. So to rotate this gear on the sheet, we're going to have to figure out, well, what is our rotation going to, what is the angle of rotation? So to do that, we're going to go ahead and select the view. We're going to put a start sketch on this particular view, and then I'm going to need to get some geometry information off of this gear. So I'm going to draw up to this point from center to what would be that point P, or the intersection of big R and little r, and I'm going to go ahead and drop that line at that point. I now need another line that I'm going to be able to then gain some information on. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a line to the what would be the center of the top of the gear tooth. Now, I should be able to then dimension between these two lines, and that dimension, as I see here, is 4.5. Now, if you remember back when we created the gear, we utilized 4.5 to then set up our gear tooth spacing when we were figuring out the gear spacing. So now that I know this information for the rotation, I can now finish the sketch, and then I can go ahead and select the view, right-click on the view. All right, so we right-click, we have rotate open. I'm going to go ahead and grab that absolute angle. But before I actually do this, I want to go ahead and just delete the sketch. I don't need the sketch, and sometimes that geometry can create a problem with rotation. So I'm going to delete that sketch because I have the information I need. Right-click on the view, rotate the view, grab absolute angle. I'm going to just set up that 4.5. and then tell it to rotate in the other direction. Instead of going clockwise, we're going counterclockwise, and then hit OK. So now that that's set up, we can now go ahead and create our section view. So I'm going to grab my section view tool. I'm going to then select the view that I want to actually create a section for, and then move to the top of the tooth, about approximately a ½ inch off the tooth, or I'm sorry, ½ inch off the tooth. Come down to the other side, click again, right-click, continue, and now I can pull over and set up my section view of my gear. So setting that up in position, you can see that what Inventor does is it's going to create one solid piece of material here, and that's actually technically what would be created. But instead of setting this up, what we need to actually show is we need to show where the addendum is located. Of course, the addendum or outside circle is located, and then very importantly, the pitch diameter. So this is some information we need to show. So what we're going to be doing is working toward creating this type of a layout, because that tooth, that gear tooth, is not a solid piece of material all the way around the part. So we do not want to create an illusion of what is there and what is not there in the drafting convention. So some of the first things that we'll go ahead and do is we're going to start dimensioning this gear tooth so that we can pull information from this tooth to go ahead and set up this section view. So I'm going to go to this sheet number 2 here where I'm laying this out, and I'll grab my annotation tab, and I'm going to then start dimensioning some of the information here. So first I want to make sure that I have information on the outside circle, and I'm going to go ahead and create diameter information here. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab the dedendum, and again grab diameter information. And then I'm going to go ahead and create another sketch, and then utilize that sketch to create what would become my pitch diameter. So I'm going to then create a sketch on this view. I'm going to grab my circle tool, and then from center, I'm going to go ahead and pull out, and I want to actually create a diameter. And since I know my pitch is 5, I'm just going to draw in a circle that is going to be 5. By doing this, I can now hit OK, and I can actually now take and turn this line into a center line. Okay, after you draw your 5-inch pitch diameter circle on the sketch, you're going to go ahead and select it, and then you're going to pull down your format, and you can come down and actually then go ahead and place that on what's going to be a chain layer or a center line layer, so that you have a center line style line to actually indicate that is a pitch diameter. So then when I finish the sketch, that line stays as a center line, and that line will then become the pitch diameter. So when I grab my dimension tool and then select the line, I can pull out the pitch diameter and place that dimension as well. Okay, now that we have our center line circle for our pitch diameter, we have our section view set up, we can go ahead and now adjust this section view so that we can lay out the proper dedendum, addendum, and center mark for the pitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I need to select this particular hatching, right-click on the hatching, and I need to hide that hatching because I'm going to end up replacing hatching through the sketch. Then I'm going to select the view itself, and I'm going to go ahead and create a Start 2D sketch on that view. And then I'm going to go ahead and start laying out the rest of this part. So I'm going to grab my line tool, and from the center of what's going to be the gear hole here, I'm going to then select and actually pull up, and I'm going to draw half the diameter or the radius of the dedendum, which is going to be 2.21. Once I do that, I now have a point, and I can now draw across the gear with a line. Drawing across the gear to the line is going to give me a line that's going to stay on my sketch. So I can hit escape now. I can then go ahead and actually delete the 2.21, and I can actually delete the 2.21 line because that line I don't need anymore either. What I'm going to do next is grab my line tool, and I need to find the point for the pitch diameter. So I'm going to draw up, and I'm going to draw up the radius of the pitch, so it's 2.5. Drawing up to that point, I now have a point at the end of a line I can work with, and now I'm going to draw across my gear. And now I need to have a point on this side that I can work with for a center mark after I finish the sketch. So I'm going to just take and draw a line down, back down to my dedendum. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to then select my dimension for the 2.5 and delete it. I then can also delete this line because I'm going to then come back after I finish the sketch and create a center mark at that point. Now I'm going to go ahead and looking to fill and hatch this region right here. So if I grab fill hatch, I'm not going to have a closed loop. So I don't see any red closed loop yet. So I'm just going to make it easy. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to go from the point at the top to the point at the bottom of where I want to hatch. Then I'll grab the fill hatch tool, select inside of that red highlight, and then tell it to go ahead and hatch this. This is just going to be the ANSI 31 standard general purpose hatch. At this point, I can go ahead and hit finish sketch. Now what I can do is grab my center line and then find the green dot, which is the end of the line that is on my sketch, and then draw over to the green dot, which is the other end of the line on my sketch, right click and hit create. This line now represents the pitch diameter. Of course, I have the outside of my gear, the addendum of the gear. This is then the solid material within the gear itself. Going to do the exact same thing here at the bottom of the drawing as well to go ahead and mimic that. Okay, you're going to do the same thing on the bottom of the gear as you do at the top of the gear to mimic that section view. Then you can add your center marks and center lines. Don't forget center marks and center lines to your gear. Then we're going to go ahead and start setting up the detail view. So I'm going to grab my detail selection, select the view, and then I'm going to go ahead and just keep this fence as a circle. And I'll go ahead and set this up to be a little bit larger. I'll set this up to be 4:1, so it's fairly large. I'm going to click and pull. This is the area I want a detail view of, and then as I pull out, I will then go ahead and drop my tooth in the position where I want it to be. The reason I'm doing this and asking you to do this is because I want to be able to easily and quickly see that when you created your gear, that you used the proper radius information for your fillet. So when you give me the information for your big R, your little r, all the information here, I also want to have you adjust the tolerances so that your primary unit tolerances is at least the units utilized for creation. So for your fillet, 4 decimal places. For big R and little r, you can probably work out to be 3 decimal places for that. So make sure that you set your primary units up so that I know that you've created this using the Wellman's chart correctly. Then just make sure that you move things around on your page so that things fit properly and they're not running off the page. Things will fit on an A-size sheet. with a 4:1. So we can also go back if you need to adjust the size of your detail view, you can do that, or the location and pulling this around. Wait till your cursor turns to a moving symbol, and then you can adjust and move this around properly. So that's what I'm going to want to be able to see from you. Make sure then also you change your section view information. If I come over to section view and edit that, this should be set up to be A as my section view. Detail section then would become B for this particular sheet. So finish that. Right click here, edit the sheet, or edit the label, and then this will become B. Okay? Alright, so that's what I'd be looking for after we make a gear, so I know that it's been created properly. Make sure your center marks and center lines are there, and when it's finished it's going to look something like this.